Hi friends, welcome back. In today's session, we are going to perform CRUD operations in ASP.NET Core by using Modal Popup. For this, we are going to use code first approach and we are going to use jQuery and AJAX. First, we will see the demo. So, this is the index page where we are showing the product list. Whenever we don't have any products in the table, so we are going to display this default message. So, here we can create new product. I'll click on this button. So, without entering any data, I am trying to save the data. So, here the validation is implemented. This is client side validation and server side validations also we have implemented. Here I am trying to enter the product name. Once the details is entered, so this text box color will be changed. So, here I am going to enter the price. I am entering quantity. I will try to save the data. Saving the data, we are displaying this message. I will click on OK. So, modal pop-up will be closed and the data will be binding into the table. Update the data, I will click on edit. So, modal pop-up will be displayed. This header has been changed dynamically. We are going to use the single modal pop-up for insert and update purpose. Here I am changing product name. I am going to update the data. Here in update also we have implemented the client side validations. If you are not entering any values, so this red border will be displayed, so that this is the mandatory field. So, user has to provide the data here. So, I am going to enter the data now. I will try to update data, product details updated. So, this data has been displayed in the table. So, here we can try to delete the record, click on delete. So, here we are showing the alert for the user confirmation. If I don't want to delete this record, I can cancel it, so that this record remains same. So, I will try again, I will try to delete this record. This time I will give the confirmation as OK. So, the record has been deleted. So, this data is binding into the table. So, like first we will create a new project here. So, I am going to use my existing solution. Here I am going to right click on my solution, add new project. Here I am going to select ASP.NET Core web application and I am going to use the MVC. Click on next. Here I will give the project name. Project is going to store in this location. Click on next. Here we can select the latest .NET framework. I am selecting .NET 7.0. Create it. So, my project is creating now. Project has been created. I will expand this. I am going to make this project as starter project. Since we have multiple projects, we have to set it as starter project. Right click on the project, set as starter project. Here we are going to use the entity framework code first approach. For this, we have to install required packages. For that, right click on the project, go to the manage NuGet packages. Here we are going to install entity framework related packages. I will search for entity framework core. So, I am going to install entity framework core first, install it. You can select the latest version, accept the license terms. So, this has been installed. Now, I want to install design also, accept it. Next, we have to install SQL Server. Database, we are going to use the SQL Server. For that, I am going to install entity framework core.SQL Server package also. Then we have to install tools. Whenever we are going to use the code first approach, we need the tools package for the migration purpose. I am going to select this package and install it. Then we need latest bootstrap version. So, that bootstrap package also we can install it here. Select bootstrap and we have the latest version of 5.3.0. Install it. So this also installed. Now go to the models. Here I am going to create one folder called DB entities, where we can store all the DB related entities inside this folder. Here I am going to create a model called product. Here I am going to define the properties for product model. I need ID. This is going to be primary key, so we can define as key. Product name, then price, quantity. Product name will be mandatory, so I am going to make it required. So we can add required attribute for mandatory fields. Also I want to change the display name here. Whenever we are displaying this product name, I want to add space between this product and name. So this product name will be used to communicate with the database, and to display purpose we can change this name. So this label will be used for display purpose, this will be used to communicate with the database. So now we have created our product model. Now I am going to create one more folder called DAL. Inside the project, right click on the DAL folder, add class. I am going to create one more class here. Here I am going to create one DB context class, which is going to inherit it from the DB context. Select the DB context and go to the quick actions and generate a constructor with the options. So this app DB context will be used to communicate between the application and the database server. Here we have to add our DB set. We have only single table here, that is product model. Here we have to add the namespace, which is DB entities. Our product is available inside this project, models and DB entities location. So I will make it as products. Now we have to migrate this table to our SQL Server. For that we have to use the connection string. Go to the app settings.json. Here we have to add the connection string. So here this connection string will be available inside our previous projects. I will copy it from there. So I need connection string. So this is our SQL Server. So we have to provide DB name here. So this is my SQL instance name. If you have multiple SQL instances, then you have to provide this instance name also. Here database name I will give it as this is my DB name, and we are going to use the Windows authentication, that's why I have provided integrated security as true. Now this connection string we have to add it into the program.cs as a dependency injection. So this also I'll copy it from my previous session. So I'm copying this dependency injection, and we can go to the program.cs class. So here I'm going to add the dependency injection. So here we have to provide our DB context name. So I'll copy it from here. This is my DB context name, and here we have to add the namespace, and here DB connection name also we have to provide. So this connection string name will be available here. I'm taking the same name. So now we can communicate easily with the database. So go to the package manager console. So we have to migrate this model to the database called CRUD with Modal Popup. So we are going to create this database as well as the product model inside our SQL Server. So go to the package manager console, and here add migration. Here we have to provide the migration name. So I will make it as initial migration. Enter. So when you have multiple projects, ensure default project should be our current project, then only we can migrate our models here. So build succeeded. Now we have to update the database. Enter. So migration is successful. Now we will go to the database. Refresh the databases here. So our database has been created. We can expand this database. Go to the tables. So our product table is created with 4 columns. Now we will create a controller for product. Go to the controllers, right click. I'm going to create a new controller here. I'm taking empty controller, add. I'll name it as product controller. Click on add. To communicate with the database, first we have to initialize the DB context. This is our DB context name. Select the context, go to the quick actions, generate the constructor here. So now by using this context we can communicate with the database. First we are going to read the data from the database. For that we are going to use the entity framework here. First I'll create one private method here, which is going to return JSON result get products. So this is not going to create any view, that's why I'm making as non-action method. Here I can read product from the database, context dot products table dot to list. So we will get the list of products from the product table. We are going to return as JSON. Assign these products. So our method is ready to get the data from the database. Now we are going to create a view for this. Right click on the index, add view. I am going to create a empty razor view, add it. I'll name it as index. First I am going to add model here. It is available inside our project modals DB entities product. So this is our model. Here I am going to define title, so which will be saved inside the view data. So this is my title. I will display inside h3 tag, so I can reuse this title. After this, I will add one horizontal row. Here I am going to add one button to create new product. I will add the class. So here I am defining margin bottom 2. These are all the bootstrap classes I am adding. I will give the title as add product, and also here I will define one ID for this add button, because we are going to use the modal popup. To call this button, just I am going to give one ID as btn add. Inside next div, I am going to display the data. I will give the bootstrap class as container. Here I will define the table. For table, I will add bootstrap classes. Inside this, I will add table headers, and I will define ID, product name, price, and quantity. So here we have to create a table row. Inside table row, our table headings will be there. After table header, so we will add the table body. So we are going to bind the data here. So this we are going to bind data dynamically. We are not going to fetch it here. Here even we don't want modal also, because this data will be binding from the jQuery. So for that purpose, I will give ID for this table body, tbl body. So this data also I am going to bind it from jQuery. Go to the Solution Explorer, www.root.js. Here we are going to create one custom JS file to add all our logics to bind the data into the table body. For that, right click on the JS folder, add new item. Here I can search for JavaScript. So I will name it as product JS. First, here I am going to write document.ready function. For that, whenever page loads initially, so we have to call a function here to load the product list. Here I am going to write a function to get all the products. I will write one function. So whenever page loads initially, we will call this function. Here I am going to use the AJAX method to call the data from the controller. Here we have to pass URL, then we have to pass the type, whether it's a GET or POST request, then we have to pass the data type, then we have to pass the content type. Here we have to pass the URL, so which we are going to read the data. So this is the product controller. From product controller I am going to get products. Here I will pass it as product controller. First we have to give the controller name, then our method name. So this is the method which we are going to call it, get products. Then type will be get. We are going to read the data from the database, that's why I am passing type as get method. And data type, we are going to expect the data as JSON format, so here I have to pass JSON. Here content type, while getting the data we are going to encode it. For that I have to pass content type as JSON. Encoding type also we have to pass here UTF-8. Then here if it is success, we will get the data. I am going to create a function here, so we will get the response from the controller. If response is null, here we have to validate this. It can be undefined. Length also we have to check here. So if any condition is satisfied, then we have to display the message as products not available in the database. I will create a object here. I am going to store the information in the object format. So here I am going to append the data. I will define the table row here. Then it will be TD. Here I have to pass class here, call span. Here we have to use the call span. If there is no data, so we have to display the default message. So here we have 5 columns will come. So here one more we have to add it as action to display the action buttons. So I will give the call span as 5. Here message will be displayed as products not available. This is the default message which we are going to display to the user. Then we have to close the table row. Then we have to bind the data to the TBL body. So we can take it ID from here to this table body. We are going to attach the data. We have to pass object of data. Suppose if response is not null or response is not undefined, if table is having any data, then we are going to display this data here. Again here I am going to define the object going to append the data here. Here we will get the list of products, so we have to use the loop. For that I will use the each, and here I will get the response. Here we will get index and item. Inside this I will append the data. First I have to create a table row here. Then I will create table data, and I can use the table data. Inside this I am going to display the item dot id first. So here we are showing the id, then I have to display other items also like this, then product name, then we have to display the product name, then price, then quantity. Each row we have to display the edit and delete buttons also. Those buttons also we are going to add it dynamically. So here I am going to use object. Here I am appending those buttons also. TD. Here I am going to use the anchor tag. Then I'll use it. Reference here. Here I'll use the class. I'm going to display small buttons here. And whenever user clicks on this button, I have to get the ID of that row. For that I'll use the on click. Here I'll use it edit. Then I'm going to get the item ID here, item dot ID. Here I'll give the title as edit, and then I'll close. Likewise, I'm going to add one more anchor tag for deletion. This is delete. So finally we have to attach this to the table body. Suppose if there is any error here, we have to alert this. Here I will create a function. Alert. So this is the message. I'm going to display this. So whenever document is loaded, we are going to call this read method. So this is the method which we are going to read the data from the controller. This is the controller name, this is the method name. So we are going to pass which type of request we are passing to the server side. So here we are passing the method type and the data type. Now we can read the data from the database. So now we have to link this product.js into the index view, because we are going to read the data from the index view. For that I have to link it here. So I have to link two files. Go to the JS lib. Here I need to get the jQuery file also. I have to add the jQuery.min here. So we now need to add all these files. So this jQuery.min is enough, and we have customized one JS file, that is product.js, also required here. Now we will go to the layout.cs HTML partial view, and we are going to add one nav item here for our product. So controller name will be product, and action method will be index, and the title is product. Save all changes. So now we have linked jQuery as well as the product.js. Run the application. Click on product. So it's getting error like unable to read the data. So we have to check what is the issue we are facing here. We will go to the application and we will check it here. URL product and get products, type data type, everything looks good. So here we linked product.js. So we'll debug here. We'll run in debug mode. So it's not hitting our debugger. So here we will remove this non-action attribute, because whenever we are using inside any other action method, that time we can use the non-action. So this may be blocking this. Again we will run the application in debug mode. We click on product. Still we are getting as unable to read the data. So we will change it to public instead of private. We'll run this. Now it is hitting to our controller. We will check the products. So currently we don't have any products inside our table, so it's showing 0. I'll click on F5. So the message is showing as products not available. So we have to check on call span. It should span for 5 columns. We will check it that. So here we have to remove the non-action, and instead of private method we can make it as public. So here I have to check the call span. Okay, so this is the issue. I'll run it again. So now it's loading correctly. Products not available. So now we can add few products from the back end and we can test it. We will add the products from the back end. So we have added 2 products. We will go to our application. We will reload it. Yeah, it's loading perfectly, and we have to change the design for this delete button alone. We will go to our JavaScript. So it should be danger. We will reload it again. So now it is showing correctly. Like this we can bind the data by using jQuery and AJAX methods. So we have three important items here. One is product controller, index, view, and product JS. Product controller, which we are going to communicate with the database, and we are going to read the data by using the action methods, and we are passing the data in the form of JSON. So this data will be passed to the index view. We are binding into the table here. Here we are using the jQuery to perform the CRUD operations, and we are taking help of AJAX methods here. This is the function which we created for reading purpose. Likewise, we are going to create another method for insert. First, we have to create one action method for the insertion. I am going to create one action method called insert. I will make it as insert here. Here we are going to pass it data in the form of modal, that is product modal. Here we have to define the method type. This is a post method. Since we are going to post the data into the database, we have to use the post method. Here, before submitting the data, we have to validate the modal. If it is modal state is valid, then we have to submit the data. Else we have to display the error message. So I will return here if modal state is valid, then we have to save the data. For that I am going to call my DB context. I have to add the product DB set. I will add the modal here, and I have to save the data. Finally, we will return the message to the user. So product details saved. Here straight away we can return this message if modal state is invalid. So now we have to design the view part. For that, whenever user clicks on this button, so we have to display the modal pop-up. Now we have to design the modal pop-up. For that I am going to create another div. So we need modal here. I am going to import modal namespace here. So we have to call it our project name here. Inside this modals, inside modals DB entities, here we have the product. So I will define the class here. It's a modal. I am going to provide ID product modal. So because we are going to call this modal from the JavaScript, that's why I am giving the ID. Here we have to define the modal dialog. Inside modal dialog, we will be having the modal content. Here I will give the modal header. I will define h3 tag. I will give the class for this. So these are all the bootstrap styles I am applying to the modal pop-up. If you want, you can copy this from bootstrap websites. I am going to provide ID also, modal title. So I am going to add modal title dynamically because we are going to use this for insert and update. So we have defined the modal header here. After this, we have to define the modal body. I'll create another div inside this modal body. Here first I will define the one hidden item for storing the ID. I'll use the ASP4 here because we can take modal items here. Default I'll set it as 0. Then I'll define another div. I'll add the class margin bottom 2. Inside this I'll put label for product name. Then I have to define the text box here. I have to define input type, set text. Then I have to use the ASP4. Again it's a product name. We can define class for this text box. Also we can place placeholder here. So I'm closing this. I'll copy this div. I'm going to reuse it for price and quantity. Price. This is going to be number, and here it should be quantity. This text also number. After these divs we need another div to display the buttons. For that I am giving class as modal footer. So inside the footer I am going to display my buttons. Here I'll add the button. So I'm going to define bootstrap styles again here. I'm going to give ID for this. It says save. Type will be submit. So here I'm going to call on click. So I'll call the JavaScript function that will be insert here. Just we have to create this insert function. So title will be saved. So likewise we need update also. Update I'll change this style. So ID I will give it as update. Here I'll change the ID as update. So on click we will call the update function from JavaScript. Here I will create another button to close the modal popup. I will define the class here. Here I am going to close the modal. On click again I have to call the JavaScript function here. So I will create as hide modal. So I will give the button name as close. So these three buttons will be displayed inside our modal popup. So either save or update will be displayed because we are going to call whenever insert is called, that time save will be displayed. Whenever we are editing the record, that time update will be displayed. For this we need to add another style here. By default save button will be displayed. Here I have to display none. So dynamically we are going to validate these conditions, whether either we have to display save or update button, that we will decide dynamically. So now we have to create a function for hiding this modal as well as the insert. we will go to the JavaScript. So this is the function which we created for reading the data from the database. Likewise, we have to create another function to insert the data here. Before this, whenever user clicks on this button, so we have to display this modal pop-up. So first we will validate that. For that, I am going to create on click function here. So here we have to pass ID of that button. So I can take it from here. This is the button. Whenever user clicks on this button, so we have to display the modal pop-up. First we will check whether that functionality is working or not. So here I will create a function. So inside this, I am going to call modal popup. So I have to get the name of modal popup. This is our modal popup ID. We have to show this model. First we will check whether it's working or not. Run the application. We will click on button. So our modal pop-up is coming. Here dynamically we have to display the title. The title is not coming. We have to add that. Close this. So we will add the title for the modal pop-up. For that, I am going to take modal title from here. So this is the ID of modal title. Here I am going to pass this ID and I am going to assign this text. So I will make it as add product. Now we have to create insert function. First we have to pass the form data in the form of object. For that I am declaring one variable called form data and I will create a object here. Here I am going to read all the values from the form like product ID, product name, price, quantity. I am going to read it from here. For that I will declare form data dot ID required. So that ID we can get it from the form. So I have to take this ID here. This is the ID. I have to pass here dot val. So likewise we have to get the other values also. Product name we can get it from here. Then price we can take it from this item. So now we are able to read the data from the view. Now we have to call AJAX method to post the data. Here we have to pass URL, then we have to pass the data, then type. So these three items we have to pass. First we have to pass the URL, that is our controller name / to pass our action method name insert. Here we have to pass the data which is available inside the form data. Type will be post. We are going to post the data to the database. So once we post these data, we will get the success or error. Here I am going to create a function for that, which we will get the response here. Otherwise we will get the error here. Here we have to display the alert to the user. Alert. So this is the message I am going to display if there is any error. Here we have to validate the response. If response is null, it can be anything, so we have to validate this. Undefined. If it is, the condition is satisfied, so we are unable to save the data, so this message we will display, else we are going to display as response, which we will get it. So the response will be received from here, so this response we are going to display here. Straight away I will display the response here. Also, whenever the new product is inserted, we have to rebind the data, so this is the method which we are calling. So here I have to bind the data also. So we will keep a debug point here. We will run the application. Since we don't have any data in the database, so we are showing this default message. I'll click on the add product. Now title also added to the pop-up. Now I'll create a product here. I'll click on save. So it's hitting our controller, so we can check the data here. Here we can check data. ID 0, price is 15,000, product name, quantity. So we will proceed. So here we are facing the data type issue, system.22, system.int32. So we will go to our modals, DB entities, product. Here we have to keep it as double. I think I changed the data type. Now we have corrected the data type. I'll run the application without debugging. I'll save it. Product details saved. So it's binding into our table. So we have to close this model after adding the data, and we have to clear these text boxes. I'll close this modal pop-up. Close is working fine. So two things we have to do: whenever data is inserted, we have to close the modal pop-up, and also we have to clear the data. For that I am going to create one function to hide the modal pop-up. Hide modal, this one I am going to create it here. So here I have to pass modal ID. I think we have modal ID here. This is the modal ID. Modal. So here we have to hide. So now this function will be called inside this insert function. So once data is inserted successfully, so we have to hide the modal pop-up, and then we will be binding the data and we will display the response to the user. Also we have to clear all the controls. For that I am going to create another function, because we have to clear the text boxes, otherwise it will display the same text again. Here controls, or I will make it as clear data. First one is product name, value I am making as blank. price, then quantity. So this clear data also I will call it from hide model, because whenever this model is hiding, that time I will clear the data also. We will run the application. I will click on add product. I will click on save. Product details saved. I will click on OK. So pop-up is closed and data is binding correctly. Again, if I click on add product, these values are cleared from the form. So also we have to validate from client side. So whenever I am trying to click on save, so it's going to server side and it's validating. So before submitting the data, so we have to validate from the client side. For that, what we can do here, we can create a function validate. I will declare a variable here is valid. By default I will make it as true. Here I am going to validate each control. If I have to pass product name, I can take it these values. So I have to check the empty string is there. I have to use the trim here. If it is empty, I have to validate this, and I am going to return is valid is false. So if it is empty, we should not allow user to submit the data. So whenever the product data is not entered by the user, I am going to change the text box color. Again I am going to take this .css, I am going to add it here. Border color I'll add in red. Else if it is data is entered, then I have to change it to the some other color. I will make it as light gray. So I will copy this for other controls like price, then quantity, so this is the function which we are going to validate it inside the insert and update. I'll get the result from validate function. If result is false, then I'm going to return false, so that it will not be submitted to the server. So also we have to validate one more thing here. So this will be validated at the time of insert or update only, but whenever the text is changed, we have to change these colors. For that I am going to validate it here. So I can take product name first, change. Here I am going to create a function. Again I am calling as validate function inside that, so that we no need to rewrite these all the logics. So we are going to call this function. So this function will validate, and based on the validation it will set red or light gray. So these things I have to apply it for price and quantity also. Price, quantity. So now whenever user is change the value, so automatically this validation function will be called and it will be set border color as red or light gray. So now everything looks good. We will run the application now. I'll go to the add product. I'll try to submit the data without entering any fields. Click on save. So it's going to server, so it's not validating from the client side. We have to check that. So here actually we missed one thing. So finally we have to return the is valid. It's not returned here. Return. Is valid. So if this condition is failed, so automatically it will return as true. Run the application now. I'll click on add product. I will try to save directly. So this functionality is working. It's not hitting the server. So client side validation is working fine. I can close this. I can add product. So after adding the product, it should be default should be gray. I'll click on add product again. So whenever we are clicking first time, this should be changed to different colors. We have to change this logic. So I'll take it this. So we have to clear this whenever we are clearing. So we have to call this price and quantity. So we have to make it default as light gray. So I'll run it again. Product. So I will try to click on save. So its validation is working. Close it and I will try to click on add product. So this time it's working fine. So now I'll try to submit the data without entering. So now I will enter product name alone. This time I will enter laptop. So whenever we are changing, so this border is changing. So now if I try to save, so only these two controllers are validating and showing the red border for this text box. So I'll enter the price now. Click on save. Product details saved. It's binding into the table. Whenever user clicks on this edit button, we have to display the modal pop-up and we have to bind this row data into the modal pop-up and we have to update the data from modal pop-up. For that I'm going to product controller. Here we have to create two methods. One is get method. Whenever user clicks on this edit button, so we have to display the data. For that, here I'll create one method to get the data based on the ID. I'll give the action name as edit. Here based on the ID we have to get the data. For that I am taking input parameter as ID. So here I will filter the data from product table. I can use the context. I'll use the find method. So here I have to pass the input parameter as ID. So once we get the data, we are going to return it in the form of JSON. Here I will assign the product. This is going to be get method. I'll make it get. Also we need another method to post the data. So I'll copy this. I'm going to make it as update. So in this case we will get the data in the form of product model. So I'll pass the product model as parameter. So this one I can remove it here. So this is going to be post method. We are going to post the data to the database. Whenever we are posting data to the database, we have to validate the model. If model state is valid, then we have to submit the data. Here I can call context products. So I can use the update method here. I have to pause the model. Once it is updated, we have to save the changes. Here I am going to return the JSON data after updating the record. So this is the message which I am going to display to the user. If model state is invalid, already we used in the insert part, so we can display as model validation failed. This is the message which we are going to return to the user. So our controller side part we have completed. We have created two different methods. One is get and post. Here based on the ID we are going to read the data and we are going to send it to the modal popup. So this data will be fetched in the modal popup. From the modal popup, whenever user is clicked on the update button, we have to post the data into the controller. This controller will push the data to the database, and once it is updated successfully, we are going to return this message to the user. If model state is failed, then we are going to display this message. So now we will go to the product.js. Here we are going to write the edit function. Here already we defined the edit function whenever we are reading the data here. So here we are binding two buttons. One is edit, another one is delete. The user clicks on this edit button, this function will be called, same function which we created here, and for this function is expecting input parameter ID. So this ID we have to pass it to the edit function. Here we have to create one AJAX method to post the data. I am going to pass all these parameters to the controller to get the data based on the ID. Here we have to pass the URL first, which is in our case product is controller. Then we have to pass this method name. Along with this we have to pass the ID. I am going to pass ID here. Then we have to define the type. We are going to get the data from the controller, so I am passing as type get. Here we have to pass content type. Here we have to define the encoding method UTF-8, and also we have to pass the data type. We are getting the data in the form of JSON. Once it is success, here we have to get the response from the controller. I'll create a function for that. So I'm going to validate the data here. So we will get the response, whether if it is response is null or response is undefined. I'm going to validate the data here. So I'll display the message to the user. So this is a message I'm going to display it. Else if So response length also we have to check it here. If length is 0, then I'm going to display it as data not available with the ID which is passed by the user. Here I can pass ID. Else, so it will be successful, then we have to display the data in the form of modal popup. So if data is available, then we have to display the modal popup. So we can get it modal popup from here. So you can go to the index view. From here we can see this is the modal popup. So I'm going to pass this value here. I'm going to display this here, modal show. So otherwise, if this is null or undefined, or if length is 0, we no need to display the modal popup. And I'm going to define the modal title also here. This title also we are going to display dynamically. Since we are using single modal popup for insert and update, we are displaying the modal title dynamically. So this is the modal title here. Update product. If it is insert, we are going to display as add product. So in this case, we have to hide the save button and we have to display the update button. For that, so I have to get the save button here, ID. So this save button, I will hide it. So we have to display the update button. So this is the ID for update. I'm going to pass it here. So instead of none, we have to make it as block. Here we have to display the values now. We will assign one by one. So, response dot ID. Then I have to display the product name. Then price. Quantity. So these IDs we are taking from this modal popup. These are all the IDs we are picking. Product name, price, quantity, and this is the ID. Suppose if there is any error, we have to handle that. So this is the success function. If it is any error, we have to handle it. I'm going to create one function here, so I can display same thing here. So get part completed. We will run the application and we'll check whether this functionality is working or not. Run the application. Here whenever we click on edit button, that pop-up should come. We will click on edit button. So we are getting some error, unable to read the data. So we will check our JavaScript function. So this is the issue here. So here we have to pass the query string as id. We will run the application again. Click on edit. So this time modal pop-up is coming with the data. So this is label updated dynamically as update product. Here we can see the data. Here we removed the save button and we are displaying the update button. Now we have to create another function to post the data. Whenever user clicks on this update, we will call the update function to save the data. We'll close it. Go to the AJAX method. So here this is the edit functionality. So now we have to write a function for update. Whenever user clicks on this update button, we have to call this update function from JavaScript. First we have to validate the data. For that I'll call validate function here. In previous sessions we have explained how to use this validate function. So by using this validate function, we are validating all the text boxes whichever is mandatory. If result is false, then we are returning false, so that it will not update the data. Else we have to submit the data. So again I'm going to take form data here. I'll create a object for this. So already we used for insert purpose, so I can take it from here. So I'm going to take entire function. I can reuse it in update. Here I'm taking ID, product name, price, quantity, and here we have to call the update action. So I have to pause update. Then method type will be post. So whenever we are receiving response null or undefined, we will display this unable to save the data. If it is successfully updated, then we will hide the model and we are going to rebind the products, and we will display the message which is received from the product controller. Once product is updated, we will get this message from the controller. So this will be displayed to the user in the form of alert. So if there is any error, we are going to display this message. We will run the application now. I'm going to edit this record. Click on edit. So product details are displayed. So I'm going to remove the laptop. So this validation is working fine, and I'm going to add it here. Just I'll change the price here. I'll click on update. Product details updated. So this data has been binded to the table. Earlier we had one product called laptop in the ID 3. We will execute this query now. So this has been updated with the toys. For deletion, we are not going to display modal pop-up. Whenever user clicks on this delete button, we will display the confirmation message whether this record need to delete or not. Once user is confirmed for the deletion, so we will delete the record from the database. Continuing this video, please watch my previous sessions which we worked out on how to read the data, how to insert and update the data by using the modal pop-up. We will go to the product controller first. We have to create a method to delete the data from the database. For that, I am going to create one post action method. Here we are going to pass the ID. Before deleting the data, so we have to find out whether this ID is available inside the database or not. For that, I am going to check. So by using the find method, I am going to get the data here. If product is not null, then I am going to delete the data. So once it is removed, we have to save the changes. So I am going to display this message to the user. Suppose if there is no data available with the ID which is passed by the user, then we have to display the message here. So here I can pass the ID. So we can display this message to the user. Now we will go to the product.js. Here we will write the delete function. So here also we are going to pass the ID as input parameter. So this delete functionality also, it will be similar to the edit. I can copy this, I can reuse it here. Delete. Here instead of edit, we have to pass the delete action method and we have to pass ID. Here type will be post because we are going to delete the data, and the content type it's not required here, and data type also not required because we are going to post the data. So instead of reading, I will mention as unable to delete the data. Same thing I can make it here. So once it is deleted, we no need to display this data. So we have to call getProducts function, which is going to bind the data, and we will display the response here. Here we are passing ID. Once this data is deleted, we will get the response here. If it is null or undefined, we are going to display this alert as unable to delete the data. If response length is, actually this is also not required. So here based on the ID, we are going to delete the data. We are going to pass the ID as input parameter. Once data is deleted, we will get the response. If response is null or undefined, we are going to display this alert. It is deleted successfully, we are going to rebind the data, and then we will display the response here. This delete function will be called from here. Just I'll show it that. So this is the button click event. We are calling this delete function. You can see this. So this is calling from the button click event. Before deleting the data, we have to take the confirmation from the user. So here I am going to pass the message as if it is confirmed, then only we are going to call this AJAX method. I'll run the application now. We have 3 records. I'm going to delete this record. Click on delete. So are you sure to delete this record? I'm going to cancel it, so the record will not be deleted. Again I'm trying to delete this time I'm going to click on OK. So this product details is deleted. Once you click on OK, so it's rebinding the data. I'm going to delete another record here. Click on delete. OK, product details deleted, so it's binding as per the expectation. So like this we can perform the CRUD operations in ASP.NET Core web application by using the Modal Popup. That's it for today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.